The dust has settled on this week's international friendlies. I think there maybe are a couple more odd fixtures that are taking place for the rest of March, but for the most part, 99% of it has been completed. So let's dive right into these results. So I'm going to start in South America. We had Colombia against Australia, which ended in a 0-0 draw. Goalkeeper Vukovic making a great save for Australia to maintain the clean sheet. Colombia sort of sending mixed signals here. They defeated France last week after coming from behind, and now they draw with Australia, one of the weaker sides entering the 2018 tournament. Bit of a mixed bag here for Colombia. That's sort of an eyebrow-raising combination of results here because they should have beaten Australia comfortably. Australia lost last week to Norway 4-1, and Colombia, by most metrics, is a much better team than Norway is. I didn't look at the lineups. There's a whole bunch of mitigating factors that take place here. Number one, it's a friendly. Number two, lineups. A lot of matches around the world taking place at the same time, so it's literally impossible to watch all of them. But as far as results go, it's a little bit odd. Maybe that would suggest that Australia made some adjustments, some improvements from their previous outing last week when they were so drubbed by the Norwegians. Bert van Marwijk, the Dutch manager for Australia, doesn't have much time to get this team into order, but maybe it's a gradual process for them. Elsewhere, Uruguay won the China Cup with the win over Wales in the final. I mentioned that. Uruguay is doing really great at the moment. The defense is rock solid. They finally have sorted out their midfield problems. They're bringing in young players in from the under-20 squad, including De Arrascaeta, who I think is a pretty awesome player. He's probably one of the most underrated youngsters in the world at the current moment. Cavani in the best form of his life. Suarez always shows up for Uruguay. Elsewhere, Brazil took on Germany. Was not able to watch this match, but save for the absence of Neymar and a few changes in midfield where Fernandinho usually plays as an attacking center midfielder role, this was Brazil's A- team, essentially. A-. And this was Germany's B+, because they were missing a few. Thomas Müller was not there as well. Joachim Low was experimenting around in the midfield. Brazil won this match 1-0, which really speaks to how scary good and how much depth this Brazil team has, that they're able to beat the reigning world champions, the defending world champions, without Neymar. I think, even though it is a friendly, you have to take all this into account. I think it solidifies Brazil as the favorite going into the World Cup. Possibly the overwhelming favorite. Elsewhere, but you know what? If these two teams meet again, it's going to be an entirely different story. Because Neymar will be there, Müller will be there. All the main starters will be there for both sides. Spain versus Argentina, I reacted to that yesterday. Argentina's not doing anything in this World Cup. Sampaoli's excuse-making in one of the very few segments on ESPN FC yesterday, which I actually for once agreed with. You had analysts like Gab Marcotti and Stevie Nicol and Alejandro Moreno correctly point out that Sampaoli got his tactics entirely wrong. There's no justification for leaving Dybala and maybe even possibly Icardi on the bench. Might not even take them to the World Cup. You look at comments made by Sampaoli in recent days and recent weeks, even by Di Maria, they want to build the team around Messi. Before, it was an over-reliant relationship they had with the number 10. But with the own manager coming out and saying these comments that, yeah, Argentina's game plan is to build the team around Messi, I think it's just going to exacerbate that problem. I think it's he can't do it alone. He can't. I'm sorry. He's the greatest player in the world. He might be the greatest player of all time. But in the modern day of football, when you're coming up against teams that are as stacked as they are and teams that are actually teams, like Spain and Brazil and Germany, In this day and age, it's not enough to put a team on your shoulders and carry them to a World Cup trophy. In my opinion, it's not enough. And the fact that Sampaoli is essentially doubling down on this strategy instead of trying to accentuate Argentina's other qualities, I don't see Argentina doing anything in this World Cup. I don't see them doing anything. You have some other analysts who I really respect, like Have Hope Football Hut, and you have Dominic Rich, who still feel that Argentina should come out of their group. Perhaps I'm being too harsh on Argentina. I still don't have them advancing out of their group. I think they're going to get sorted out. But, others are giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I understand. What else happened? Peru defeating Iceland. So Peru is looking really well. I'm really looking forward to see Raul Ruidiaz at the World Cup. People mentioned Paulo Guerrero. Yeah, he's their veteran, but the player that I'm really looking forward to seeing is Raul Ruidiaz, and also possibly Christian Flores as well. Edson Flores. I'm mistaken for another Flores. Edson Flores. 2 wins for Peru in 1 week. They're looking like they're in good form heading into Russia. I think Peru will get out of their group. What else in South America did I miss? Chile getting a 0-0 draw with Denmark. Chile, come on, Chile, you should be in this World Cup. You should be in this World Cup. Why are you missing it? But it's a good result for Denmark, who are now on a 13-game unbeaten run, which is their longest undefeated streak ever in their history. So Denmark, they're getting into a habit of getting positive results in their games, which is good. What else from South America? What am I missing? I'm just naming this off the top of my head. So you had Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay. I think we're done with South America then. Going on to CONCACAF, Mexico last night losing to Croatia. 1 second. I don't agree with Osorio's tinkering lap night. He put up a 3-4-3 formation with Mexico. I don't really think that brings out the best of Mexico, because what happens is when you have 3 fullbacks, you're essentially putting them under a double role of serving as midfielders when you're on the counter as well. Not a big fan. There's a whole big trend going on with 3-4-3 across the world right now. This sort of revolutionary defensive formation, only having 3 at the back. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of it because it's really hard to pull off, in my opinion. It's very difficult. And against Croatia, they got found out, and this was against a Croatian team that was, for the most part, second string. You didn't have Mandzukic there. You didn't have other key players like Rakitic. Was Rakitic there? I'm not sure. But you had Rebic in replacement of him. You had a lot of Croatia's backup players that were there. A lot of the main starters for Croatia were starting for their are still with their clubs in Europe. But I don't know if I would read too much into this result. I think for the most part, Mexico's aggression in this match was good. It's just that maybe a few key moments here and there, with like Layun giving away that easy foul. Mexico really could have gotten a result from here. And if Guardado had put away a couple of his chances as well, they could have won this match. Overall, I don't think Mexico should read too much into it, but I think this was an example of Osorio getting it wrong. I think he tinkers too much, and I get the feeling that at the World Cup, it's either going to make or break Mexico. The USA got a 1-0 victory over Paraguay. I kind of didn't really watch it because I'm still heartbroken. But we won 1-0 off of a penalty from Bobby Wood. Second half was really scrappy. Paraguay arguably should have equalized. We were lucky to come out of there with the win. I don't really want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about the U.S. right now. I just get too depressed. So, Costa Rica. Costa Rica lost 1-0 to Tunisia. I said in my previous video, one of my previous videos from the Monday Q&A, look out for Wabi Khazri of Tunisia at the World Cup. Him and Youssef Msakni can cause a big surprise for Tunisia in their World Cup group. Tunisia looks solid. I did manage to see highlights of their game against Costa Rica. And Tunisia winning both games in the international break, keeping 2 clean sheets. Not a high-scoring team usually, but Tunisia are looking solid right now. Them and Morocco as well. I'll get to Morocco in a moment. Costa Rica usually doesn't perform very well in friendlies. In the last 2014 World Cup cycle, Costa Rica lost 4 friendlies in the build-up to the tournament, but we all see how that played out. They got to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. So, Panama getting smacked 6-0 by Switzerland. Yeah, Panama, like I said, I still think Panama's going to finish with 0 points in their group. Maybe they can steal a draw somehow against Tunisia or somebody else, but I do think Panama's the worst team that did qualify for the World Cup. 6-0 against Switzerland in a friendly. It's not a really good representation of the CONCACAF region. I just hope that Panama don't get blown out, because it's not a good image for the region. Elsewhere, Africa. Egypt losing 1-0 to Greece. I'm not sure how to interpret our loss. I was really kind of bitter and angry at first yesterday, but then I found out we fielded an almost entirely complete second-string side. Only 2 of our starters were in the lineup yesterday because Hector Cooper, he wanted to rest Mohamed Salah and test out some other players, but still, I'm not happy with the fact that we lost both of our friendlies in an international break. I don't know, guys. I'm optimistic, but I'm worried, man. I'm worried. I don't want to finish behind Saudi Arabia in the group and be one of those 8 last group place finishers at the World Cup. I don't want to be embarrassed. Please, 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 no. I was thinking of making a separate video for Egypt, Greece, and I think I might, but that would probably come tomorrow, God willing, if I do, because I want to sit down and I want to analyze it, But you talk about North African teams that are in good form heading into the World Cup. It's Tunisia and Morocco, and now I'm jumping to Morocco. Morocco recording I believe was it a 1-0 victory or 2-0 victory over Uzbekistan yesterday. Morocco, like I said, best defensive team in Africa that can also score goals. Boussafa, Belhanda, Boutaïb, Ziyech. A lot of Morocco's creativity comes from their midfield as well as their goal-scoring opportunities. This is a defensive team in Africa that can score goals. You look, just pop up a Wikipedia page. You look at where most of Morocco's goal-scoring opportunities are coming from. All of their goals are coming from. It's coming from the midfield. And midfield is crucial. People say defense wins championships, and sometimes that's true, but I feel the key to success is where it lies in the middle of the pitch. Morocco, after what Nigeria did yesterday, Morocco might be maybe not the best team in Africa at the moment, but the team in Africa that's in the best form at the moment. A little bit too early to tell, but I'm going to get to Nigeria now. Nigeria lost 2-0 to Serbia yesterday. I agree with another YouTuber. It's better to lose now than later on. Get the problems presented to your face right in front of you before an actual tournament starts so you can address them. I'm not really quite sure how to read Nigeria's loss to Serbia because I did not get to watch it. I did not get to see the highlights, so I will leave it to my Nigerian subscribers. Tell me how you felt about Nigeria's performance yesterday. Are you worried or not really? Like, were there any signs from Nigeria that lead you to question their readiness for the World Cup, or do you not really read that much into it? I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Elsewhere, Senegal, another draw this week, this time with Bosnia and Herzegovina. They drew last week with Uzbekistan, which was, unfortunately for them, a very underwhelming result given how individually talented Senegal are. A lot of their players playing in the League One in France. I think that for Senegal, though, I think the issue of relative inexperience and lack of discipline for this young core group of players could come to the fore in Russia. That's why I don't have Senegal advancing out of their group. I just think that they need something more than just being very talented. I looked at their performance against Uzbekistan. A lot of mistakes at the back. And then yesterday, Bosnia-Herzegovina. They should beat Bosnia-Herzegovina. So these are two results against teams that they should have beaten. They didn't lose, at least, so that is something. Is that it for Africa? Let's see. Yes, it is. Okay, so let's move along to Asia. I mentioned Colombia versus Australia. Australia, positive result for them. But the thing with Australia is Bert van Marwijk is trying to radically shift his predecessor Ange Postecoglou's philosophy so much that I'm not sure he's going to have enough time to do it, and I'm not sure it's going to be effective because the players under Ange Postecoglou for the last 3.5, 4 years when he was manager, they're used to that system. And even Denmark coach Aj Haride, I probably butchered his name, said that he pretty much has figured Australia out. They play their style of football is very physical, involving long balls up to the center of the pitch. When another coach of a team that you're going to meet in the World Cup comes outright in confidence in an interview and says, "I know how to play against Australia. I figured them out. I know what they're all about," that's a worrying sign. But, Bert van Marwijk, he qualified Saudi Arabia for the World Cup, so maybe he can do something here. I mean, he did take the Netherlands to the final of the 2010 World Cup. Is he something of a miracle worker? We'll have to wait and see. But Australia, they're going to have to pull off something really, really special if they want to come out of that group. And I just don't think there's enough of a gap in time between now and the World Cup for them to properly prepare for that. I don't know. Because he's trying to just change the philosophy of the team so quickly. We'll see. But it was a good thing that they got a draw against one of the best teams in the world in Colombia. Definitely a top 10 team in the world, in my opinion. So, I mean, that's good for Australia at the very least. Japan, I predicted Japan would lose to the Ukraine, and they did. So Japan have lost. Well, no, they drew with Mali last week, but it was a last-gasp victory that might as well have been a loss when you look at it. A very Pyrrhic performance. Japan just, their problem is, even though their players are very technical and very agile, they're just not good enough. Japan is just not good enough. This is one of the cases where you can explain a team's lack of success as just not being good enough. And I think that for Japan, they're up against the odds advancing from their group. I still have Japan advancing because I'm just basing it on a feeling. But, they're certainly not favored. And they could easily finish bottom with no points at all. So, they lost 2-1 to Ukraine. Ukraine's a decent team. But when you lose to a non-participating World Cup team before a World Cup, it usually doesn't bode well for the tournament itself. Moving along, South Korea, pulling off an almost comeback against Poland. They lost 2-3 to Poland, with 2 late goals coming near the end of the second half. But don't be fooled by the scoreline, because if you see the match, and I did see several parts of the match, Poland were by far the better side. They were physically dominating South Korea throughout the entire game. Poland took a 2-0 lead into halftime. Then Adam Novalka, the manager, makes several substitutions in the second half, takes off all of their starters. South Korea comes back into the game. They tie it 2-2 with 2 goals late on in the late 80s minute. I'm not sure the exact minute. And then it's up to Poland to basically pull off a stoppage time screamer, which was a great goal, by the way, to take the match back and nick the victory 3-2. So a high-scoring 3-2 scoreline can be very deceiving because it's all about context. And the context was South Korea were thoroughly outclassed throughout the entire match. Are we going to see Asian teams head for another major setback this tournament, the World Cup? 0 wins in 2014, 0 teams advanced. Is Asia being primed for yet another disappointment? I hope not, because that's really not good for the Confederation. But I think that's not what's going to happen. I'm more optimistic. Where else in Asia? Saudi Arabia losing to Belgium 4-0. Saudi Arabia played decently in the first 20 minutes of this match. They high-pressed Belgium, held them off for a little bit as well, but then Belgium just, their quality proving just too much, and they predictably dominated this game. I mean, Belgium, they're going to beat Saudi Arabia 4-0. So I don't really think it's a result that is something to be extremely worried about, because a lot of Saudi Arabians after the match on Reddit were talking about how they still like how Pizzi lined them up against Belgium, and overall they were satisfied with Saudi Arabia's performance, particularly in the first half against. It's Belgium. It's Belgium, Saudi Arabia. At the end of the day, in most cases, quality is going to win through. So there's no shame in getting thumped by a very talented Belgian team. Elsewhere, Iran got a morale-boosting 2-1 victory over Algeria. That's very important after the disappointment of their loss last week against Tunisia through an own goal. An own goal can be a sucker punch. It can be very deflating to a team's confidence. They needed this victory. Iran needed this victory. They needed it. And they got it against a once very impressive Algerian team who has spectacularly collapsed in recent years, unfortunately for them. But Iran, you know what? Carlos Queiroz is the guy. He's the man. He's been with them for a while. Managed them at the last World Cup. Iran's going to turn up for the World Cup. They'll be there. They're going to be frustrating to break down. They're not going to make it easy for nobody. Okay? Who else? Is that it for Asia? Yes, it is. Okay. So that leaves us Europe. Portugal losing to the Netherlands. Yeah, I was surprised by that because usually Portugal and the Netherlands, when they face each other, especially in competitive fixtures and tournaments, Portugal in the last decade or so has sort of become the Netherlands, what we call boogie team. So I was surprised that they lost to the Netherlands and by such an emphatic scoreline as well. But the saying goes that Portugal is usually shit in friendlies. I don't know if that's true. I'm not an expert on the history of Portuguese football, but it's not an encouraging sign to lose by such a margin to a Netherlands team that is very much in transition and who didn't qualify for the last 2 major tournaments. So we'll see. But as long as Portugal, as long as the core defense holds up, I think that as long as you have Cristiano Ronaldo on your team, you're always in the conversation, at least. Spain, pimp smacking, essentially. Argentina. Spain look really good. Really good. Really good. I'm interested to see how Diego Costa integrates himself into the team, because I think that if Spain abandons a whole false nine, which they were famous for previously in the past, and they really get themselves someone up front like Diego Costa, who had troubles meshing in with the squad heading into the 2014 World Cup, they can win this tournament. They can do it. I said yesterday, they might just be the most informed European team at the current moment. I think they can win it. France defeating Russia 3-1. Mbappe putting on a clinic at having a great performance. I only saw highlights of the match. Russia, from their perspective, like I said, Russia, they look better. They look better from the 2017 Confederations Cup. And it's great for Russia that they're getting their ass kicked now against teams like Brazil and France, because they'll be much more prepared when they come up against teams of lesser quality and lesser caliber like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's just absolutely the case. So I kind of wish that Egypt took a page out of Russia's book and booked all these matches against these powerhouses so that we would get manhandled and at least be more prepared for the World Cup this summer, given that the group that we have is of much less stature, less integrity. So yeah, for Russia, you expect Russia to lose to France. I mean, in most cases, right? So I don't feel anything negative about Russia now that I didn't feel before these friendly results. So there you have it. Where else? Germany's perspective on the loss to Brazil. I just think that Germany, they shouldn't read too much into it. They shouldn't read too much into it, but they should also consider that this was a Brazil team that also did not have Neymar. Also low, like I said earlier this video, experimenting with the squad a bit. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but it is something to be weary about long term, looking ahead to the tournament this summer. Where else? Denmark, like I said, doing well. England, Italy. You know what? I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting this English pessimism. I don't get it. I don't get it. Here's the thing. England are undefeated in their last 8 matches, right? They've conceded twice in those last 8 matches, one of which was a penalty yesterday that was very dubiously given. They have pulled off draws against 3 teams that are better than them in Germany, Brazil, and Italy. They drew all of Brazil, Germany, Italy. Really should have beaten Italy yesterday. And they, prior to yesterday, had a 6-game clean sheet of not conceding a goal. They're punching above their weight in a lot of these games against teams that are vastly superior. I'm not getting this pessimism. I don't get it. England, I think England is fine. Okay, yeah, previous tournaments past have been disappointments for England. But consider that you were probably in the group of death in 2014, but now your group is much more manageable for 2018. So you should at least get through your group, you know? So I don't know. I just think England, this England team, is not being given enough credit. They're kind of boring to watch. They're not very flashy. A lot of their games are very dull and dross, but they're getting results. England is still getting results. They're getting positive results against teams that far outclass them. They're still getting results. So, you know, we'll just have to see where that goes, though. Sweden lost both their games this week. They lost to Chile last week, and they lost to Romania yesterday. But a lot of Swedes that I spoke to on Reddit, they don't really care. They fielded mostly a second-string side because they're trying to figure out other goal-scoring prospects, in addition to Emil Forsberg and Jimmy Durmaz and Ola Toivonen this summer. So a lot of Swedes are pretty happy with the direction their team is going in. So they're not reading too much into their loss yesterday against Romania. Perhaps we shouldn't either. Who else? Poland. Poland still looks a little bit suspect. A little bit suspect. The loss last week to Nigeria. Yeah, they should have scored in that game. And then yesterday, they dominated South Korea, but they closed out poorly. And this is part of a recurring pattern we've been seeing with Poland going back to qualification, especially in their last qualifying match against Montenegro, when they damn near almost allowed Montenegro to come back into the match and steal it. They needed Robert Lewandowski to save the day. Now, yesterday, I don't remember who scored the final goal. Was it Zielinski? Not sure. But Poland is just showing this pattern of dominating early on, but not being able to close out a game. A little bit of inconsistency there. Having said that, Nigeria is a better team than South Korea, so it's more understandable that Poland would lose to them instead of losing to South Korea. If it was the other way around, I'd really be scratching my head. Poland are very good. I'm just not sold on them entirely quite yet. But again, for the 100th time, we'll see. Where else in the world? Switzerland, I said Panama, Italy, yeah. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that is it. Serbia. Okay, Serbia. I got to talk about Serbia. Serbia defeating Nigeria, and they lost last week to Morocco. Serbia they're not a World Cup team. They're not a tournament team. They have players, Maximovic, a couple of other players that were in the Under-20 World Cup in 2015. But when it comes to major international tournaments, Serbia like other Balkan nations, they don't play as well as they should. They don't. 2006, they were billed as a dark horse under the name Serbia and Montenegro. 2010, they were a dark horse. Is this same story all over again for Serbia? I don't know. I don't trust them very much yet, but I don't know. And it doesn't help that they had a managerial change just a few months ago. They got rid of a Muslim who took them to the World Cup because they didn't agree with his style. Now they have a new manager who is young and a former player. I don't know how that's going to play out, but I guess Goran, my subscriber Goran, you're Serbian, right? How do you feel about Serbia's performance in these friendlies? Are you hopeful or are you worried? So, what else did I leave off? Croatia already talked about. I think that's it. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. So leave a comment below, like, subscribe. Hopefully, maybe I'll see you later today, but if not, I'll see you tomorrow, God willing. Have a good one. Much love and peace out.